Right, okay, welcome to another episode of The Father's Rhythm. And today I have a dear friend with me called Jess, and we're going to talk about, the journey of transformation. Wow, I can already feel like really excited, and I feel that this is going to be so important and bless some people because Jess has been on a real transformational journey just in quite a short space of time. In fact, it's one of the most dramatic changes I've witnessed. And it's come because of a choice and subsequent choices that have been made. And really, I honour her so much in this journey and how she's persevered through tough times and really enjoyed the good times and always holding fast to Christ. So before we get into anything, I'm just going to do a little bit of what I call the whacktivation. You can call it what you want, but it's just a little bit of breathing, a bit of niceness, just to calm. Because you've got to understand as well, guys, that for Jess here, if she's explaining anything personal, that's big. You know, it's like it's not comfortable to do. It's not comfortable to open up. But hopefully today we just want to be raw as we can be with the journey. But we need to remember that everything is light. Everything is light. We don't need to be heavy about things. There's joy and there's peace in the kingdom. But let's just do a little bit of centering beforehand. I'm going to say some words. For you guys listening to this, I just said take in some deep breaths and either listen to the words or say your own words. But this is what I call our whacktivation or our centering, whatever you want to flip and call this moment that we're about to share. So, he's in me and I am in him. He is in me and I am in him. On this journey, there is pleasures in his right hand forevermore. There is no fear in perfect love. Wow. We are loved. Guys, we are so loved. I need to just double check this is still on because my dog walked past my laptop. And... Did you knock that off, Rocky? No, we're still going. Right, okay. Hi, Jess.
Hi.
I feel a bit blasted. I'm just going to take a sip of water. Wow. Just basking in it. What we're going to talk about? That was it.
Transformation. Yeah.
Transformation. Okay, so I don't know. Say what you want to say to start off, but I kind of gave you a little G up in terms of this is Jess, this is my friend. Rocky's trying to get up on the sofa at the moment. Rock, can you relax or get up? Go on then. Come up. Do you want to say anything? No,
Rocky says hi.
He'll probably just sniff. So maybe let's start with there's been a new trajectory of your journey. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, most certainly.
Maybe start with a bit of a background on belief systems, old versus new, this type of stuff.
Yeah, so I was born obviously in South Africa, as you can probably tell from the chirpy accent.
Yeah, bro.
and then I moved to England when I was 10, and I guess I'd always considered myself a Christian, and we went to church in South Africa, the normal Christian upbringing. And church in South Africa was it's very passionate. The Holy Spirit was very much there, and it was so led by Him. And those are my fondest memories of church completely. And it was spirit filled. Even as a child, I could remember enjoying being at church. And then I came to England, and it was just a completely different spiritual atmosphere. It felt dry and it felt barren, and it was very, very difficult. And we'd been to many different churches and found a one that we'd been more settled in. And, I'd always been to Sunday school. I was involved in the church. I even did a gap year where I was involved in kids group, Sunday school, primary school, teaching assistant, daycare,
What
everything.
didn't you do?
Yeah, so I was very much always involved in the church. But my personal life was just, it was falling apart, and I was dead in my soul, to be honest. And probably about 3-4 months ago now, I reached a point of just my life being completely different. Like, it's like a light bulb switched on, and everything has changed since then. And it's not just been easy, there's been a lot of difficult choices along the way for that to happen. But God has restored everything in my life beyond my wildest dreams.
So let me ask a question. So you said you did all the religious stuff, let's say. Oh, maybe let me not be using that word. So, but you did either all the religious stuff / Christianity church,
Yeah.
and you were heavily involved.
Mm.
But then you got to a point where you felt dead. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of output.
Yeah.
But the input wasn't really adding up.
Didn't exist, and yeah.
And then you said that you had a like a light bulb moment. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I was in and out of church at this point because I'd just become so apathetic. Like, I didn't care anymore. God wasn't there for me, so why should I be there for him? If he doesn't care about me enough to feed me every Sunday, as in, that's what I'd call it, when you go to church and you listen to a sermon and you get fed by the preacher and you leave there and you're like, oh, that was a great message, whatever. And then in my own personal life, I dated non-Christians most of my adult life, from probably from year 10 in school. So yeah, so I would have been, what? It's a good few years. And I'd been in a relationship at that point with a non-Christian, and I was just so dead within myself. I was so tired of making the same choices and looking at my life and thinking, where on earth am I going? Where on earth is all of this? And it wasn't even at that point wanting to get back to God. It was just being so sick of surrounded by the same people and my own choices of not doing anything with my life and not living it for anyone other than myself. So I made the choice to end that relationship, and I haven't looked back since, which is, everything has completely changed.
Okay. Interesting. So, do you know what? I guess a lot of people's story is they went down a path, and when they went down the path, they realised things just really didn't taste good. And the more you go around the path, you're like, oh gosh, it tastes awful. Yeah. And then before you know it, you're like, right, it's making me sick now. Yeah. I need to get out of here. Similarly, I had my same kind of moment, although I had no previous real experience of church. I mean, I went on and off when I was a kid. I was in a Catholic school, but then I had a moment in Russia where I was like, it tastes too bad. Like, I can't deal with the taste of this anymore. It was like getting a parmo that hadn't been cooked and they used that really yellow cheese. And we've all seen a parmo yellow cheese and it's not on. In fact, if any of you are eating that, stop it. I'm a parmo enthusiast. So, yeah, and then it tasted so bad. I was like, I need something else. And even in that stage, I didn't know what I needed. But there was something in me that said that what you need is available and it's good. Wow. And it's God. Whatever God was back then, I didn't really know, but here I am 7 years later. So you're on this, so you have this light bulb moment, or this moment where you say, okay, enough's enough. But you've been heavily involved in Christianity, so you understand the concept of God, you brought up around it, etc. What has changed from your decision making, from your decision to, hey, I'm turning away from that old life, and that deadness that you felt inside, to now, bearing in mind you already had a belief in God? What has changed Yeah, talk a little bit about that, if you will, if you can.
I guess what hasn't changed, and the with the previous belief system of being a Christian, it almost made it more difficult because I wasn't coming with a fresh slate. I was coming with all these built-up ideas of who God was, having an understanding in my mind of Him, but not an intimate connection and relationship and understanding of Him.
Oh,
Like people always said, "Oh yeah, it's about a relationship with God." I didn't have that, and I was a
wow.
Christian for what, my whole life, and I didn't even know what that looked like, and I'm still very much on that journey of understanding that, yes, I know in my head I've been told 5 million times that God loves me, but I never felt it and I never trusted it and I never believed it
Wow.
until I experienced Him in literally every avenue of my life. Like every single thing He's touched and changed my view towards relationships, my view with female friendships. Like one of our mutual friends, Caitlin, like I absolutely adore her, and she has been such a blessing to my life. Just with Adam too, the way that he loves people and cherishes them, and God has just brought me to such a place, and I've had to make a lot of difficult choices and giving up stuff and owning up to a lot of the ways that I had I guess unhealthy perspectives, the way that I ran my life, the way that I everything. Like there was a lot of deceit involved there. And I didn't even realize how bad it was until that was all brought up. And
So, I'm going to play angel's advocate at certain moments.
okay.
Some people might listen and go, "You just had a time in your life where you just needed change, you know? Like we said, it tasted bad, and you were like, I need change." And then you sorted yourself out because there comes a time in life where things need some adjustment and you made those adjustments. How would you say to that person listening, perhaps, or how would you explain that it was God? Because, for example, you talk about things being brought up or everything changing and
Mm,
whatnot. Can you delve in a little bit to how that was God and how God brings these things up or how relationally that works? Now, I know that's a bit of it's a tough one, that.
yep. Okay, well, we're here to be open and honest and raw, so you're gonna get my whole life as it is, and this is me being open.
Tasty.
Take it as you will. So from So I'm going to give various physical examples of how God has changed my life, because for me that is undeniable. It's this is how my life was and this is how it is now, and the thing that happened in between was Him. So, for example, during all of this, all of my relationships and stuff like that, I gained a huge amount of weight, and I know that sounds like a trivial thing, but you could see it in my face. I was overeating every night. I was sitting on the same spot on the couch every night, just eating and eating and eating. And my parents would hide food from me so that I didn't eat it. And
The hamster's back again.
literally, we just had this conversation at the beach the other day. They would hide food from me. Bless their hearts. Oh, you know,
That's
somebody
brilliant.
truly loves you.
I love that one.
There was yes, so and I ended up being 63 kgs, which for my frame was a lot. I'm not judging anybody. I am not picking on anything. I'm explaining the example of my life and how much it has changed. And within the space of a month and a half, I went from 63 kgs to 56 kgs, making no exercise changes, no dietary changes, a few bits and pieces, but nothing dramatic at all. And I well, you can ask me to hop on the scale when you see me, just bring one with you. And that was an example in my life of God's extraordinary power. He just it doesn't matter where you for me, it doesn't matter where you are, my transformative power can just restore every area of your life. So that was one example. And then I'd had I was a very I guess extroverted person, and I had a lot of friends, female and male friends, like everybody else, and through various friendships, I'd been very hurt in them, and and I didn't trust anybody anymore. I didn't trust my male friends. I didn't trust my female friends because they were just going to turn around and hurt me like everybody else. And I could say that I trusted them, but I would never truly trust them. And then something you should probably know about me is that I used to hate crying. Like, I didn't like it at all. It was just so embarrassing because then that person could see exactly who you were and everything about you in that moment. It made me feel really bare and raw. But Caitlin and I were chilling in Stockton and just relaxing, and we ended up talking about a lot of these past friendships, and I ended up crying in front of her and really sharing our hearts with one another. And she had a word from God in that moment and shared the Father's heart with me. And through that relationship with her, I mean, I've only known her for probably about 3-ish months now so far. And just come and hang out with us. If you want to come and have a coffee and see how much God has worked in my life and all of our lives, just come and have a coffee. What you see is what you get. And because the way that He's restored my trust and my ability to share and rely on people in friendships as well, and just share the truth and have people, I think that's the mark of a true friend, somebody who will tell you the tough truth when it hurts because they love you that much. And there's a lot of things that Caitlin and I have shared over this time in a very short space of time. And I won't share everything because some things are personal to other people as well. But yeah, come and have a coffee with me.
That's a cool invitation. I might take you up on it. So something that I think is quite significant is the alignment of events that bring you to where you are. So perhaps not the event in and of itself, but how that event comes about, and how when you started to make decisions towards God and transformation, things started to align for you. Now, I know that because I've been part of the journey. But could you talk a little bit about, as your heart started to change, how things came into your path? Because I think that's extraordinarily important.
So when Jacob and I got back in contact again, we were talking a lot about the different things in our life, and I think it came about when he said that I seemed so much more joyful than before, and the journey for me had already started at that point of breaking off old chains and old cycles, and being able to be joyful from that was a true gift for me. And then I guess I didn't realize that I'd been walking around my entire life with all of these different baggages on me, like feeling insecure, not ever feeling beautiful, always needing to rely on people, always feeling anxious, so many different things, my attachment in relationships, for example. And I didn't realize that this stuff is in what we would call your soul gates. So there's different stuff that you form patterns in. I mean, your body remembers trauma, there's stuff from that, and these patterns they were so ingrained in me that they'd almost become subconscious. So I didn't even realize I was doing them. Like, for example, my dad would ask, "Oh, what are you doing today?" And for no reason at all, I would just lie, being bare with you guys here. And there was no reason for me to lie, but it had become such a subconscious ingrained pattern that I didn't even realize it was happening. And so a tool that was given to me was something called, well, the courtroom. And basically what that looks like is, and this is not something to be rushed, even though perhaps at points I did rush it myself, but that's a journey of growth, of learning and resting in God, which I am very much still learning. God is gracious. But when you go to the courtroom, it's that quiet place. It's taking something to God. It's like, for example, the lying. It's like, okay, God, this is something I really struggle with. This is something that I don't know how to deal with, and I stand here. There's Rocky. He's got in the house. And I stand here and I take responsibility for every time I've been accused of this, because obviously Satan's the accuser. He accuses us of these things. And it's taking responsibility. It doesn't matter whether this goes back generationally or whether it's just me. It's standing there in the gate and saying, I take responsibility. And then claiming God's blood over your life. Because his blood washes away everything, and it has redeemed us, and it's knowing in that moment it is done. And that was powerful for me, because I didn't have to just be subjected to these things for the rest of my life. They could be dealt with. And it's moments like that. And for example,
Can I interject?
yeah.
So there's probably going to be various people who listen to this. Some will be like, what the heck are you talking about? A courtroom. Others will be like, oh, I think I've heard that before. Others will be like, oh yeah, I've operated in that. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a background, because there's some flowery words there that maybe most will understand, some will not. So I'm going to be very matter of fact, guys. I'm not going to give a huge explanation on this. That's, watch other videos or whatnot. But you are a triune being, as God is triune, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You are triune. You are spirit, you are soul, and you are body. Your soul can have attachments in it. You've heard and probably seen movies with demonic attachments and possessions and stuff like this. All this is true. This is true. This can happen. And that comes from things being attached in your soul. I'm not going to get into why, but you can get these things removed. You can remove it. You don't need a priest to come and chuck some holy water over you and wave some scent in front of you to get something out of you. In fact, the fact of the matter is, guys, that we all have attachments, and that God wants to journey with us for us to release that attachment with him. So us and God together releasing stuff. So there's a little bit on the soul. The courtroom is exactly as you would see a courtroom on the earth, in that you go to court to get a judicial and legal decision on a matter, and you provide evidence for that for you to get the decision, and you're found either guilty or non-guilty. In the same sense, things in heaven are a reflection of that which is on earth. So heaven works in the same way in a judicial system. But the good news is Christ has already paid the price. That's why the blood of Christ is so powerful. That's why the gospel is so powerful, because he has paid for every accusation against you, for every wrong thing you've ever done in your life. He has paid by his blood, and all it takes from us is a recognition. So when Jess is talking about engaging a courtroom, she's talking about in heaven there is a courtroom. Jesus has already paid the price. She's recognizing things that God brings up in her life, and then Jesus is ridding her of whatever has been attached to her, which, by the way, is an extremely powerful process, and a process that we're talking about now, which is transformation and renewal. That's just a little bit of background.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so talking about transformation there and things that are being accused of, I think one of the biggest things in my life was that I didn't believe that God was a good father. I didn't believe that he knew what I needed, that he knew how to provide for me, and that he truly loved me. Like, the God who created the heavens and the earth and the stars loves me. No way, not happening. Like, no, you're not allowed to. No way. And that was a big journey for me of having an understanding. I've been told that he does, but then feeling it in my heart and knowing truly that he does. My prayer time looks completely different. It's like I can chat to God and I'm like, oh, hey dad, how you doing? Like, I had a rubbish day today, but thanks for helping me in this, and this. It's changed the way that I operate at work, the way that instead of just going about my day being harassed by every single thought of you're not doing good enough, or you did this wrong, or you made a mistake, or you're not this enough. It's like, no, I am a child of God. I am fully capable. I am blessed by him. I have the faith to trust in him every single day and to submit everything to him. It doesn't mean that I have to always look composed and together. It doesn't mean that I have to be perfect in everything. That's a journey. But it means that I put my trust, instead of in myself, into God. And it's affected every area of my life. I mean, there's a lot of stuff from my childhood that that definitely got transformed, and we're open and we're honest here, so you guys get to hear everything. So there was a huge gap and a hole in my heart as a child from not trusting that God will provide. And to give a bit of context here, in South Africa, we were very poor as a family, and it was difficult, but God always provided. But there was that hole in my heart of believing that I wouldn't ever have enough, and needing to make sure that everybody around me felt like they were still doing a good job. So that affected areas of my life as trivial as clothing and food. I would always need to know that the fridge was full. And I have I have 47 t-shirts, which is way too much for any person, but I didn't realize, and I couldn't see it until I'd begun this journey with God, and He's restoring every area of my life. I know this sounds, maybe it's a bit bits and pieces here and there, but I'm in the middle of it, and I'm being honest and open. And there's so many areas of my life, like the clothing, like the friendships, like the like the food, everything that's being completely restored and beyond comprehension. And
I don't know what I'm more impressed about, the restoration or the fact that you have 47 t-shirts.
I counted them.
Wow.
Well, I had to know.
So, well done. Like, you're being really open and you're speaking brilliantly, like really brilliantly. I'm enjoying listening. I'm going to go back a little bit. So we talked about the courts and bringing things before God.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about what that actually is? So what are you bringing before God? How does God reveal that? What does an attachment look like? Because I've made the statement, I don't know if you'd agree or not agree, that everybody has attachments.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to label everyone, you're demonic, you're possessed.
Oh, of course.
The exorcism of Emily Rose is for everyone. But what I am saying is everybody has attachments within them. And actually, if everybody looked inside, they'd realize that themselves.
Yeah.
And they'd think, yeah, I have patterns and ways of thinking, or I have maybe very unholy desires or things that are just, we would probably label wrong. This is wrong. It's dark. Like, I had some things in me that were dark. These were weird urges. Where am I getting these urges from? But then God showed me that actually that was things inside my soul, and I could release them by bringing them before Him. And once you release them, you don't have the same feelings anymore, because what was the root of it has been removed. Now, without me doing too much of the talking on that, what have you learned around the soul, the attachments, let's say, inside yourself, and what that looks like, bringing it to God and removal and whatnot?
So, how would I start? So, this was a very, very much a process of learning. So I've kind of been flying by the seat of my pants with a lot of this. It's that I would have advice or guidance from friends like you on this journey, and then go with that. And as I was going with that, I would learn the finer details, if that makes sense. So I'll explain. So with relationships, like I was talking earlier, I know that a lot of people struggle with relationships. Heck, I did. I could never be out of a relationship because I was never good enough by myself. And God gave Jacob a vision, an image, and while we were in the car, and he shared it with me, and it was very difficult. So I'll share it with you now anyway. So there was this, in the vision, there was this pendant around my neck, and it had like a black bead in it, and from that came all beetles and horrible stuff. And it was showing how this relationships, these attachments were still in my gates and hadn't been dealt with. And if they weren't dealt with properly, they spread everywhere, and they needed to be brought to the courtroom. So, and in that moment, after, of course, crying, because I do that a fair amount, but that's a good thing, I knew within me, is the only way I can describe it, that I could bring that to God, and that needed to be brought with and dealt with. And because of my past, because of not wanting to be in that place anymore, there was a desire that I never had before to go to God and for this to be dealt with. And he has very much given me that desire, and it's grown in myself over this time. But I didn't want to just let the Beatles, for example, the relationships continue to take over my life and to continue to make those choices. So I then had the desire to bring it to the courtroom, like we discussed earlier, and say to God, and this actually happened twice that I brought, or three times that I brought relationships to the courtroom. Like I say, learning on the job. So at first I was just kind of blasé about it. Oh, just relationships, God help me. And then the second time it was more specific. It was naming each relationship that I'd been in, the person, the confessing to God the things that I'd done, and accepting his blood over my life. And I had, during those moments in the courtroom, if ever there was an experience of feeling heaven on earth, that's what I felt. There were sensations where I felt like a rushing and a flowing through my whole body, from the tips of my toes to my head. And
Wow.
yeah, you could say, oh, you're just making that up. You're just sitting on your legs and it's giving that feeling. I promise you, I thought the exact same thing. And I tried to stop it. I would change positions. I would sit flat. I would hold my body stiff, and nothing could stop that flowing of, it felt like living water through my body.
Wow.
And it was the most beautiful experience ever. And that's something that you can't just explain away to something of the earth. It felt different. It was different. And coming of courtroom stuff, and I'm sure you'll experience it too. And so that was a huge way in starting to recognize what to bring to the courtroom. And there are a lot of things that don't need to be brought to the courtroom, and it's not a place where you rush in and you're like, oh my word, God, what's happening? I don't know what to do, with where there's stressing and fear. That's not what it looks like. Well, it has some time for me, but God is good.
Brilliant explanation. I think language is a very interesting thing, isn't it? And for some people, I know that we're talking about something called courtroom, but I truly believe that people have been through this experience without using the same language.
Mm-hmm.
So for some person, it might not be courtroom, but it is, the root of it is still the authority of the blood of Christ.
Mm.
And Jesus has paid the price. And because he has paid the price, our release has already happened.
Mm.
We just need to recognize it. And for me, that is the goodness of the gospel.
Mm.
The gospel isn't something we find. The gospel's already found us. So the gospel had already found you, the good news of your freedom.
Mm.
You agree with it.
Yeah.
As you agree with it, it transforms you.
Yeah.
And this journey is a rest and a flow, as we know. We talk about that often, of walking in step with God.
Mm.
And he's the revealer. Actually says in the Bible, he's the revealer of the heart of man.
Mm.
So you didn't go searching for those things. Like,
No.
for example, you mentioned a vision was given to me. True. It
Mm.
was. You didn't search for that.
No.
You didn't say, oh God, please, 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 please give him a vision. About, like, it happened. And I said, Jess, I'm going to say some things here that might be a bit uncomfortable, but you gave me permission and I did.
Yeah.
And I think
the hard truths of love.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think that exemplifies the rest of God
Mm.
in that he does the groundwork.
Mm.
We agree with it.
Mm.
And it's not easy. As we know, it's not easy. However, he walks us. He takes us on the journey. We're called to be in step with him. And I didn't want to use the word follow there because I just don't think we're sheep. I think this journey now that you're on is the journey of the governance. It's becoming who you've always been, and you're not a sheep. Yes, I know there's some Christians triggering now because they go, what about the Bible verse says you sheep hear my voice? Brilliant. Be a sheep at the start, but then be the shepherd. For he is the good shepherd and you're being transfigured into his image. Wow. So this journey is about taking back control. Like you mentioned a few things earlier. You said like trauma. So true. Like everybody's had a traumatic childhood, whether you've been in the nicest family ever, there's some trauma stuff kicking about.
Yeah. There'll
have been some trauma in your adult life. Some people have been through more than others. And then we have the opportunity to take back control. And the reality is we can never do that without Christ because everything is woven together by Christ. So the atheist that breathes is breathing the breath of God, literally. However, we can do it with the consciousness of Christ. If we do it with the consciousness of Christ, we learn who we truly are. So nothing can ever be done without the power of God, because God holds all things together. The fact that you can get up on the morning, have breakfast, have coffee, all things are held together by God. However, it's to become conscious of God that brings about a transformation. So the irony is, when people say, I don't believe, is, well, you're breathing what you don't believe.
It's a direct contradiction, yeah.
It is, isn't it? I don't believe it. And God's like, you're speaking out of a mouth that I created. But yeah, so this journey and the one of the big things for me is the difference between religion and sonship. Religion for me is ceremonial. It is about activity. It is about what you do. It is about being part of a gang, part of a community that has a certain set of regulations or rules. Now, I don't want to say that religion in and of itself is the worst thing ever, because religious settings realistically have brought people to the knowledge that there's a potential that a God is real. Like, that's how it happened for me. However, religion can't be the end point, because actually, if you don't come in and out of religion pretty quick, it kills you, because it teaches you the opposite of the gospel. Because the gospel is that you don't have to do to get, it's already yours. Religion is do that or you don't get it. Religion is dualism. It is heaven and hell, and you have to abide by something or you're going to go to hell. If you abide by something else, you're going to go to heaven. Whereas the gospel isn't that. No. The gospel is heaven's already in you. Come to the knowledge of that and do yourself a favor and release the hell in you. Now, I used to be afraid of the idea of hell. Then I looked inside myself and realized I was full of it. And once you look inside yourself and you realize you're full of it, you can get rid of it. Once you get rid of hell, it no longer exists. So then the only thing that's left is heaven. And I think people need to be aware of that, that it isn't about your actions that save you from anything. It's about your choice in relationship that releases you from the thing that you never wanted in the first place.
And our sonship with God.
Which we then start to grow in and mature in. And as you know, even the word faith in biblically is to be convinced. I think it's pistis, that's how you'd say it in Greek. It's to be convinced of something. So even the faith that is given to you, it is the ability, is God's convincing ability to teach you who you are. That's what faith is. So if someone says, well, yeah, I have that faith, brilliant. God's given you that through convincing you of who you are. So this is a journey all about God convincing. It's like God convincing Jess, God convincing Jacob of how powerful we truly are. So really, he is implanting power in us. He's not taking it from us. He's not saying abide by rules and regulations. He's saying, I empower you. In fact, effectively, I empower you to go out into the world and be who you truly are. And we're not under the letter of a law. So we're not under a rule or regulation. We're actually governed by love and by wisdom. And love and wisdom are so expansive that we can never put them in a box. So the reality is, to some people, freedom of Christ would look so uncomfortable, they would label it demonic, because they have no concept of what it would actually look like. But the Holy Spirit will lead those in that path and that journey into freedom, whatever that looks like. And I think that's another important pointer, is that as we embark on this journey, God is your teacher, because everything that you've learned before could be wrong. The likelihood is you'll have picked up some fundamentals that you'll hold to and they're true, but most of it will be shaken. And we've got to be okay with trading in what we think we know so God can reveal what we don't yet know. And that can be an uncomfortable process. But it's a process of then being revealed in us who God is. And Paul says it in the Bible. He says it pleased God for him to reveal in me his son. It's a cracker one. It's a cracker that. It pleased God to reveal his son in me. So Paul, for those who don't know, was a religious Jew who was very zealous and wanted to kill people who followed Jesus. And he had an epiphany moment where God revealed Jesus in him. So religious, bloodthirsty, I want to kill everyone. God revealed his son in him. So whoever you are listening to this, wherever you are on your journey, if you're a blood-curdling, angry guy with an axe in your hand, or actually you're a goody two-shoes, whoever you are on that spectrum, God is going to be pleased to reveal Christ in you, which is your true hope, because it's your hope of glory. It's your hope of transfiguration.
I think you bring a beautiful point to that, and one that is often forgotten. I mean, I know I struggled with that on especially on the beginning of this journey. I'd always, like I say, I'd been a Christian all my life, and subscribed to the belief that in order to be worthy of love, I had to do, and that functioned in every single area of my life. And like you say there, on this journey, I'd gone from such a place of religion and do to be worthy of love to a place of such freedom. I had this one moment where I was like, oh no, what have I done? I have completely gone the wrong direction. This is not where I'm supposed to be at all. And I was fearful.
I'm meant to have shackles on me. Why am I free?
Honestly, because I'd gotten so used to the captivity of religion that I didn't understand how to operate in the freedom of God. It didn't exist to me. He was
Say that one again, Jess.
I got so used to the captivity of religion that I didn't understand how to operate in the freedom of God. And
that bad boy.
And he offered such freedom, such acceptance, such love. He had his arms open for me, saying, "I love you, come as you are." And that was completely foreign to me. He might as well have been talking a different language. I didn't understand that at all, because he fully loved me. And he wanted all these good and beautiful things for me, and was restoring every area of my life and giving them to me. And I'm like, what? You really love me, God? How can this be? Because I didn't understand the freedom of his love, that acceptance, that adoration. And I think that's an important point that you brought up earlier about the rest. None of these things that have happened in my life have been from my doing. Yes, I've made the choice from the aftermath. God has brought something up, for example, the relationships, and he's allowed people to speak into my life, and I've heard a lot of hard truths. But that has been God. And now you may be wondering, well, how do I get to that point? Where do I start? It may
you can buy the CD for $14.99 from the God TV.
$49, you should make $149.
I know, I could charge more. I don't know. Let's charge for this.
Oh my word. But yeah, so at that point, when after I was so apathetic from being in relationships such and such, it came to a point of full surrender. I had to be willing to surrender everything. And Rome wasn't built in a day. It didn't all happen in a day. This has been a period of time where it's happened, and all these things have been brought up with. But it is in God's timing and not my own doing, which was such a big thing for me, because, like I say earlier, I didn't understand how to rest, because when I was resting, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't doing all that I was supposed to do. But it's coming to that realization of God's full and beautiful and expansive and continuous love for you, is that just surrender. Say, stand in your living room, stand in your garden, stand in your bedroom, kneel, whatever you want to do, and just surrender it all to God. God, at this moment, I give everything to you, and here I am, willing and wanting to be on this transformative journey. And I can promise you, he shows up. And the amount of incredible experiences I've had, like, I've been praying, and I've seen things that are quite unexplainable and beautiful.
Wow.
But yeah, it all comes from rest. You don't have to do to be worthy of love. Just rest in his love. He loves you more than you can imagine.
Wonderful. I reckon that if we could probably go for hours.
Yeah.
But I think we've done well.
Yeah.
I think we've covered numerous subjects.
Hopefully everybody could stay on track during that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're a little bit jumpy here and there, but so be it. Maybe we'll do another one as well. But guys, I hope you really enjoyed that. Thank you, Jess, for being so raw and open. If you've got any questions about what we've spoken about today, you can get in touch. You know, there's a Facebook page, there's a YouTube channel. Yeah, if you'd like to become a Patreon, you can also do that. There'll be a link in the YouTube video. You're more than welcome to pop along and join our community there, which is a little bit more relational because we don't know who's listening to this. We don't know who you are. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. It was lovely to chat with you and bare my heart. Thanks for listening.
Shalom.